Hello, it's Karen, and here is just a quick video overview of two mini math lessons focused on sort of elementary, middle school statistics. And it's assumed in both activities that there is already an understanding of what mean, median, mode are. And this is more investigations about what do the graphs and the visual tell us, which measures make the most sense, even though we can calculate all the measures, which ones actually really describe the data the most. So the two activities that I'm overviewing here, again, the links are in the description of the video and also on the blog post. So I'm just going to get right into them. So I'm using Classpad.net, free to use. If you use the links, you're technically just working in the free area. If you'd like to save anything, make sure you've created an account, which is pretty easy to do. Just click this and it will save the work that you've done and also allow you then to modify the activities and share them on your own with others. So first one I want to talk about is basically it's deciding what is the best representation. So you'll notice there's some data here and it's in the calculate sticky that as a list. Because I want to also show how things are connected here. So the first set of directions says to collect data. So this is sample data on shoe size. So they can go collect their own data. I give some examples of, ask your neighbors, your house, what's the shoe size, or you could, change the data. Numbers of pets owned by people, or the height of everybody. So whatever their data is, they can collect it. And I want to just quickly show you this. This data is in here. They could use that if they want. So this is just, I've entered the data and it's created my list. What I'm going to be showing you is, as we scroll down, there is a table attached to this data. The name references it. And so notice that the table data is here, but what I want to show is that if I change this data, so let's add a couple numbers instead of just changing it. Maybe we don't want 7.5. Maybe we want 6. Or actually, let's go back and change this to 6.5. 6.5. 6.5. So whatever, they can either delete the data, change the data, but they simply replace it in the already existing list. And what happens, you'll notice, there we go. Yeah, and you'll notice that now those data points that I just added, or if I had changed all the numbers, would now be reflected in this table. So that's kind of a neat feature. So the first thing they're being asked to do is, okay, so you've got your list of numbers, whatever they represent. In this case, we're saying shoe size. Step 2 is to calculate the mean, median, and mode of the data. So if your students they should already have an understanding of this. They can do it a couple different ways. It depends where you're trying to go. If you want them to calculate it by hand, they could actually, use the calculate sticky and type it in by hand, right? And verify. And this takes a while. So but they could add it up, divide by the total. So I'm just going to show you, we're going to just pretend. So they could get their total of adding all these ups and then divide by how many sets of data they have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Divide by 12. So they could do it by hand. But you can also, if that's not your goal, if your goal is more, let's look at these representations, you can use the calculator to do the shorthand. So what do I want to do first? I want to get the sum of my data list. So I'm using this function and hitting it, and it's going to give me the sum right away. And now I can find the mean by taking that answer there, 98.5, and dividing by, what did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, by 12. I could calculate it that way. So there's my mean, or I could even just type in the word that I'm looking for, mean, and put in my list name, and it will give me the same result, right? So then I could do my median, my mode, the same way. So kind of depends what you're asking students to, are you actually really focused on, are they calculating it correctly? Then you'd want to have them doing it by hand with the calculator, or you could use the shortcuts, up to you. So notice my mode, I actually have two. I have 6.5 and 9. Those are my modes, and then I have a median. So all I'm doing is just my shortcut right now to save some time. So here are my statistical measures, and then there's some questions about this later on. And so then it says, okay, so you've done this. Let's look at the data in different representations. A dot plot, a box and whisker, a histogram. So you're going to scroll down and notice these have already been done. So here's our dot plot is in blue. So these are the blue dots. Here's the box and whisker, and here's the histogram in green. And if it's confusing for students to see these together, a really cool feature of Classpad.net is you can see the tabs down here represent each graph. I can actually pull them apart. So let's say I want to just see the dot plot by itself. If I grab that tab and pull, it separates that graph from the other two. And so notice, whoops, let's pull that up there. And I'm just clicking on it to get it to be seen. Notice when I pull it apart, it gets its own separate table and its own descriptions. But now I can kind of look at these separately and decide which one is the best representation of my data. That's where we're really going with this. What's the best representation? What do the numbers in each graph do? So they're going to be exploring, so if I click on the box, what are these numbers? How do those relate to my measures? So if I see the 8.5, that's the median. What's this 6.5? What's this 7? What's this 9? So all of these things are going to explain. If I click on the histogram, what's the 3 represent? Where did that come from? And if I look down here at the bars, well, it's representing how many are in that shoe size range. And I might want to change my steps. So my steps should probably be like 0.5 if you look at our thing. So notice it changed my graph. So lots of ways they can explore the plots, and all of it's kind of happening as soon as they enter their data. So again, you can change the data and then they go down and explore. So that's what this activity is about, really exploring what are the representations, what do the numbers in those representations mean, how can you, which one's the best representation for whatever set of data you've chosen. So it's a really nice exploration, easy to change. The second one is still exploring those types of measures of central, and it's using real data, president data. So we have all the presidents and their age. This is the age when they were inaugurated. I was just checking what it was. And so notice there's things that we're going to do. So let's first look at the table. What information can you get from the table? Can you make any conclusions based on the table of numbers? And what are some conclusions just looking at ages? Well, it doesn't look like anyone is under 40. Doesn't look like there's a couple that might be over, and remember this is all the presidents, so if we click on the table we can scroll down and see the rest. So 70 seems to be kind of the oldest so far, so like they can make a lot of observations just from the table data, but it's hard because it's a lot of data. So then let's look at different representations. So now we're going to go in and click, and so you'll notice that the directions actually tell them how to make a dot plot and all the different plots. I'm going to select that column and I'm going to go to graph and I'm going to choose, notice here's all my possible graphs I can make from that data. So we're going to first look at a dot plot. So here's a dot plot, and how is the dot plot a little more helpful for us? Whoops, there we go. And we can move these, remember these are sticky so I can move them wherever. How is the dot plot a little more helpful to me? Well, I can see that there's a tie, right? These two dot, which are like 51, it looks like. So there's 5 presidents that were 51 and 5 presidents that were 54. So maybe these are the most common ages, right? What's the median? What's the mode? We can do a lot just by looking at a dot plot. So they're going to be asked questions about the dot plot. Then they're saying, oh, let's try different visualization. So now let's get a histogram in there. So we're going to do the same data, but now we have a histogram. And again, remember, maybe we want to look at these separately instead of together. So I'm going to separate them out so that they are, and which one is a little more clear. And maybe I want to change the step, the bars. So I want to maybe do a 5-year span. So this is a little more helpful to me, right? So, or we could do a 1-year span. Let's see if that changes. So there's lots of ways that they can explore the data and the visualizations. And then we even go down to the mean, median, mode. And so they can calculate by hand, which would take a long time. So then this is where we might want to actually use our quick things. And it's taking the data in that age column and simply finding the mean age here, 55, which makes sense if we then go back up to our data and realize that between, this is sort of the, it's in here somewhere is where we have most of the ages, right? So it sort of makes sense. Is that the best description of the age of a president when they're inaugurated? So we can explore that. So that's what this activity is about, really kind of looking at representation, which ones make the most sense, what, if you were to summarize things about these presidents, what would they be and why? So it's learning how to make good decisions based on these measures and visual representations. So that's this activity, and hopefully you will have a good time exploring both of those.